On today's episode of The Instinctive Australian Shepherd, we are continuing our conversation with animal behavior expert Sarah Dixon. Today we're going to be talking about everything from crate training your puppies to dealing with aggression in Australian Shepherds. If you haven't already checked out episode 20, part 1 of this interview, I highly recommend you do that. But for now, let's go. This podcast is dedicated to the celebration and preservation of the working Australian Shepherd. Your Aussie is descended from a proud and amazing lineage of hard-working ranch dogs, identified and cultivated primarily in the Wild West. Contrary to the breed name, the Australian Shepherd is actually an American breed success story. Only in America can a blue-eyed, scruffy dog rise from the dust of the American ranch to become one of the most popular breeds in the world today. The Aussie's beauty, brains, and incredible work ethic and almost empathic connection with their human charges make them unforgettable and pivotal members of the family. My goal is to help you understand this amazing breed, learn more about their heritage and their physical and mental needs so that together we can preserve the working Aussie by encouraging better breeding and better vetting of future Aussie owners, ultimately keeping Aussies with their families and out of shelters. Welcome to the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. So you mentioned something about, and since we're on puppies sort of still, we moved a little bit into adults, but a safe place. So there are some groups of people who disagree greatly with crate training, and they don't think that crates are humane or whatever. What is your opinion about crates and training with crates?
Well, I love crate training. If you can raise a puppy without it and you can do that successfully, great. But I tell all of my students, I think even if you're personally not going to use a crate at home, you should teach your puppy to be comfortable in one because they're going to have to go to the vet. They're maybe going to have to go to the groomer. If you live in a place where you have hurricanes or whatever and you might have to get evacuated, they're going to have to be in a crate. So I think of it as a life skill, even if it's something that you're personally not going to use for management. If you would prefer to use a puppy pen or whatever, that's not for me to decide. I will never force an owner to crate train. I will work with you on what you want to do. It does make house training a lot easier. It definitely makes teaching them to chill out a lot easier. And it is, to me, it's safety because they can't get into things. But you can also do the same thing with a pen. I do think that crate training can be abused. I don't like the idea of dogs being crated for 8 to 12 hours a day at all. We could get into it. I'm not a big fan of dogs being left home alone for 8 to 12 hours a day, which is pretty regular and I think causes a lot of behavior problems too. But that's life for a lot of people. I'm very lucky that we own our own business that is pet related and my dogs come to work with us. But I use crates with puppies. And I think that crate training is also an important part of teaching puppies how to tolerate a bit of frustration and stress because they might not want to be restrained, and working them through that builds a dog who can handle some frustration. So it's part of what I include even in just teaching a dog how to handle some mild frustration.
Yeah, I agree with you. And for me, it's a total safety issue. You know, when I leave my house, my dogs are all crated. I don't leave my dogs out in the yard because you never know what's going to happen. There are crazy people that steal dogs well, they probably wouldn't be able to steal my dogs, but throw poison to their dogs, whatever it is. You know, dogs can get into things at the house. Even older dogs can get into. A friend of mine had Dobermans, and this was an adult Doberman that was left alone. And he ate a washcloth and ended up dying. You know, they just get into things. And it just kind of keeps them safe. It also, in my house with multiple dogs, sometimes when you have multiple dogs, they don't always get along, so you have to be able to separate them. And when I travel, my dogs are in crates for safety reasons because they won't bounce all, they're in safety crates traveling in the car. That's just one of the things for me. It's all about the safety. And I think the frustration too, teaching the puppy to be calm. Hey, you're not happy about the situation, but learn to chill and they're going to be much more able to handle other frustrating situations in their lives if they can learn to handle the frustration of a crate. And then if the doors are open on my crates,
Yeah,
my dogs actually go in them on their own.
I mentioned
It's
to you
a
that
little
Brew was a
cave.
very difficult puppy to crate train because he has a lot of strong opinions about what could happen in his life and didn't believe me that I had valid opinions as well. And, you know, he's from great bloodlines, great breeder. Honestly, I made one mistake that set all the work that the breeder did as a foundation back. And we can talk about that if you like. But you know, now he loves the crate. He especially loves crates that are too small for him. Just crams himself in there. So do you want to know about what I did?
Isn't that funny?
Yeah, I think it's actually really valuable.
Sure, if you want to
So
share.
again, he came from a great breeder. He's got great genetics, and she did a lot of wonderful foundation work with the puppies. And it's not something I necessarily would have thought twice about. I probably would have done this with other puppies in the past, but just the right temperament of dog. So I took him home. He was about 10 weeks old. He slept great in the crate the first night, and then the next day I left him in the crate and I left the house for maybe an hour. And he didn't want to be in the crate at that time, and he had a fit the whole time because he's the kind of dog that he has always struggled with arousal. When he gets aroused, he has a very hard time coming down from that. And he got pissed off that he was in the crate and he could not bring himself down. We've done a lot of work with this, by the way. He could not bring himself down. And then from then on, the crate was horrible and he did not want to be in it. And he would scream and scream and scream as soon as he was in there. So single event of, you know, him not wanting to be in there, nobody there to deal with it, and him just screaming his face off. And then that was the association of the crate, and it was a lot of work to fix that. And I think now one thing that I do with puppies is I try not to leave them alone in the crate until I've done a lot more foundation work. So I do a lot of eating in the crate, eating treats in your crate, sleeping in the crate, so I'm right beside you. And then, you know, chilling out in the crate while I'm right there. And when I can see that they can do that and they're not getting upset and the crate is not necessarily always associated with you leaving, because that can be problematic. If you only put the puppy in the crate when you're going to leave, of course they're going to have a bad association with it. So it has to be something that's kind of regularly incorporated into their day. Right. And then when I'm pretty comfortable that they've got a good association with it, you know, I'll work on leaving the room. And sometimes you have to sort of work through crying. And I try not to let them get into such an escalated fit that they can't come down. Like I'll work them through a little bit of whining. Yeah. And what I try to teach them is, you know, as I move away, if you start to whine, I'm going to stop, but I'm not going to come back until you're calm. And when you stop whining, I'm going to come back and give you attention. I'm going to give you a little treat. Maybe I'll let you out. And so I tend to work them through that. And it works really, really well. And then they learn that whining doesn't get them out of the crate. And they also learn to tolerate you being at a distance. And so I will do a lot of that before I start leaving the puppy alone in the crate, which is easier said than done. And if I do want to leave them alone, I make sure they're really good and tired and sleeping. Yeah. Before I go out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that his inability to de-escalate himself, I would say that that's typically not super common in Aussies. I mean, I think that most of the time they can de-escalate themselves or they'll wear themselves out and they won't
and so you can
go
be like,
into that kind of
10
a situation.
minutes, I'm not letting you out, so they go to sleep, right? That's normal. Like I said, and this is nothing against his breeder. Yeah. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get when you cross dogs and shoot. Like he has always struggled with arousal. I've had to do a lot of work with him to be able to bring himself out of it once he gets stimulated. So, you know, it's genetic. It's somewhere in there. It wasn't necessarily selected for, but you know, he's in a home that can handle it.
Exactly. And, you know, genetics are, you know, I think we probably said well-bred, good genetics multiple times in this this conversation, and I've said it multiple times in other episodes, you never know what you're going to get. You usually get an idea of what you're going to get, and you have an opinion. You think, okay, if I do this and this, if I breed these two dogs together, I'm going to get this, and usually that works out. But genetics are not simple. It's very complex. You could have something that comes back from many, many generations and comes forward. Or a combination of two lines just doesn't fit together. And you never know until you do it. So, stuff happens. But for the most part, these breeders that we're talking about, I mean, they spend hours and months agonizing over how they're going to put together the best combination so that they try to make the breed better all the time. So that's kind of the thought processes behind that too. And when you're doing the puppy training with the crate at night and stuff, usually with my puppies, I put a crate right next to my bed, and they go in the crate. And if they fuss and whine in the middle of the night, I just either stick my fingers in or tap the side of the crate.
That's exactly what I do.
Tell them it's all right. You're fine. And then they lick my fingers, and then they realize they're not alone, that they're still alive, and that there's somebody here that they trust.
'cause they're just
and they lick the fingers,
Yeah.
and then they go back to sleep again. I don't. Yeah, they wake up and they don't know where they are. They're cold because they're not used to. They're having little puppy brothers and sisters aren't there anymore. Everything's different. It smells different. They have a new house. So you just sort of, let them, as long as you're calm and you tell them it's okay. If they have to go potty, then of course we take them out to pee, put them back in, everything's calm, but just not over escalating and over dramatizing it is very helpful on that. And my dog Wyatt, the one I told you the story about before, he's kind of I don't know, the word is not antisocial because he's fine out normal, but he doesn't necessarily always like to be social around the other dogs. He kind of likes his own private space, and so his crate is always the farthest away in a darker corner of the house or a place, and that's where he likes to be. And he puts himself in there when he's overly stimulated. He just puts himself away, and he just likes that spot. And he's not freaky or weird, but they all have their own ability to handle stress and their own personalities as well. Just like I like my own quiet private time, and I'm kind of an introvert, just like some people are extroverts, outroverts.
It's funny because like with Brew, when he obviously it didn't predict he was going to be difficult to crate train, and like I said, it was my mistake, but he just was the right type of puppy that he had an issue with that. Lots of puppies would be totally fine. Like you said, they would just cry and go to sleep. Not mine. And I need to also add a disclaimer that the behaviors that make him difficult make him an exceptional working dog, especially on cattle. And it's been a long journey to train him on stock. And I will fully admit a lot of it is because I am a novice handler, and I had to get my handling up to par before he figured that I was worth listening to. But he's an extremely strong working dog, and that's pretty typical. Like, behaviors that can make dogs good working dogs can make them really difficult to live with. But even when he was like tiny little guy, he always liked to sleep where he wanted to sleep. Mel called him a grumpy sleeper. And he would get grouchy if he couldn't get to sleep where he wanted to when he wanted to. And I think he definitely has a personality. He has a strong personality that wants control over his circumstances. And we had a lot of work to do for him to, basically give up control. And a lot of the crate training that I did was making him feel like it was his choice to be in there and relax. Very, very challenging dog. I learned a lot. I told his breeder, Irene, I'm like, I have him to learn patience, I think. And it's working.
Yeah. Right. And, I read something as a meme that's going around, and I'm not sure who said this quote, but basically it was, the dogs are never wrong. The dogs don't do anything out of malice in their heart usually. They just do something because they haven't been trained, or they don't have the picture for that event, or we failed to teach them something. And we can learn from every single dog. My hardest dogs, the most difficult dogs, I learn the most with.
Absolutely.
As a trainer.
Yeah, I mean, so. I will openly admit that there was a lot of times that, especially in the first 6 months, I thought about sending him back. I was like, my gosh, what have I done? What have I gotten myself into? And, getting him got me into herding and stock training. And that is absolutely my favorite thing to do with my dogs now. So I'm super thankful for that because like I always
Hmm.
I love doing dogs. I love doing dog sports that dogs work on instinct. I think it's amazing, and herding is just so cool.
Yes.
I do it with my Belgian too. It's so amazing to see them work on instinct and build a teamwork with them. It's the hardest dog sport I've ever done.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful that I got into it, and I've
Yes.
met some of the best people through herding.
Yes. I agree with that 100%. And when I'm out there working with my dogs and you don't have to say anything and they know the job and we go do the job and you come
Yeah,
back and you're like, that was so awesome, because our communication has been just building that teamwork, and the dog knows what you put your hand in the air and the dog knows what that means, or whatever it is. Herding builds that great
yeah,
sense
and
of teamwork
I'm
and it's just so
very happy that
fulfilling.
I was
I
very
just,
stubborn because we're becoming a really nice team now, and it's taken a long time, but
Mhm.
it's a really good feeling.
It is my female who is my primary trial dog right now, Harley. She's probably one of the toughest females on cattle right now out there in the Aussie world. I'd put her up against about anybody and or any other dog, and she is a tough dog. I mean, she's great in the house. I mean, we don't really have any house issues or behavior problems, other that she's overly protective. But on stock, she's real stubborn and she has her own opinions. I loved how you said that before about your dog because that's exactly how I describe Harley. She's very opinionated. She's like, no, I understand what we're doing. We went to a trial in Colorado and a couple weeks ago, and there was this beautiful run. It was just epically beautiful, perfect cattle. I mean, it was just beautiful, and I was almost in tears how amazing it was, and it was awesome. And then the next run, she puts her ears down. She's like, "No, I know the course. You be quiet. You just be quiet. I know what I'm doing." And she runs these cattle. I couldn't say anything. I mean, I'm fussing at her, and she's not listening. She thought she knew the course, and so she ran them through panels and brought them to the center pen. And she's like, "Hey, I got them to the pen. Open the door." It wasn't the right course, but she thought she knew, and it was so fun. But it was so funny because it's just cool when they can communicate with these livestock in ways that we have no idea what they're doing. It's amazing. So let's talk about some adult dog issues, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you had mentioned that your dog Harley is overprotective. That's certainly something that I see a lot of issues with, and a lot of people online have issues with that.
Yeah,
Do you want to talk about that?
sure. With her, it's moderately appropriate as far as the only time she's not aggressive. She's aggressive at home and in the car. If she's in her place, you're not going to come here and get in my house or my yard. If we're in the car, if she's in the car or the crate, it's very very protective. But as soon as I take her off my place or I take her out of the car, she loves everybody. So she's just a little bit different. She will bite if somebody comes in and sticks their hand in the crate or comes on our property without me being there. So it's an issue to me, but it's also genetic because it comes down from her mother and grandmother. So
Yeah, and it's not necessarily the worst trait. Like I always tell people that have dogs that are, kind of barking when people come in and maybe a little bit on the aggressive side, like, hey, if someone is in your house
yeah,
that you don't want
right.
them there, you want them to behave this way. But it's all, I mean, in a perfect world, you would have a dog who, wouldn't necessarily bite,
Yeah,
because that always adds an element of, oh,
yeah,
I've got to really manage this. But you also want a dog who will, if they have to,
yeah,
and such a fine balance. They don't know that, people who wander into the yard are supposed to be there or not
right,
unless you tell them,
right.
right? Like, my dogs are really good at recognizing when I invite someone in, they're a guest and they're welcome and they accept them immediately and they read my body language quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
And like actually just the other day, we had I have a bit of a weird setup where we live. We live above our business and the place that we bought is an old church, so we have a small backyard that is sort of there's a rock wall at the back that's a retaining wall into an alleyway. And there's not a very high railing. And some guy actually fell over the railing into our yard. So I let the dogs out to go to the bathroom and they're barking. And I was like, what the heck? And I walk around the corner and there's these two guys in my yard. I was like, what are you doing? And one guy turns around and says he fell over the wall. I was like, holy crap. On. But the dogs were kind of like standing there. Brew didn't bark. He was like, oh, friends are in the yard. But Dexter and Tina, the little one, were bark, 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 bark. And they were really good. They barked and kind of stood close to them and kept barking. And I said, you guys come here. And they came back. And I just said, you stay here. Let's make sure this guy was okay. They listened perfectly. But they trust me, you know? And it took me a little while to get there with Tina, the little one. She's actually quite protective. And it has taken me some work to get her to defer to me in those situations. Yeah. Dexter's very good. He's like, okay, you know what's up. I trust you. I'll listen to you. And Brew only has reacted to people if they are acting extremely suspiciously. So for him, people in the yard, not necessarily a big deal. That wasn't a threat to him. But when we lived in the city, he really didn't like it if he could see people at a distance that were like kind of slinking around. And he also didn't like people that would just be like sitting still in the dark. Those are a couple of things that would set him off. But he's very friendly with people. He accepts people into the house, no problem. And apparently people just appearing in the yard is also not a problem. But I don't know, like, if those guys had gotten up and moved in a threatening manner, he might have reacted. And I don't know if the other two dogs would have bitten. But thankfully they didn't. When they were just sitting there kind of being still and calm and minding their business, they alerted to it, but deferred to me when I said, hey, you gotta chill out. And I think a lot of people have dogs that are maybe over fearful. Yeah. So that fear is, they don't have the trust in the owner to deal with the situation. So the fear is going to override, which is not necessarily protective of the house, but then it starts to become, I've got to protect myself because I'm afraid, maybe mixed with some territorial feelings. So a lot of people have dogs that are really fearful, so they're overreactive. And then some people do have dogs that are actually, you know, territorial or protective, but they don't give them the guidance. So the dog is just like, well, I'm going to behave in this way because you're not dealing with the threat. You know what I mean? Yeah, like your girl Harley in the wrong home could be potentially extremely dangerous. Like if she wasn't stable temperament, she could be quite problematic. And a lot of Aussies are very popular now these days. Everybody wants them because they're pretty. Mm-hmm. So people are breeding them indiscriminately. And if you're not very careful with the temperament that you're producing, you can create a lot of fearful, nervy dogs that can be, really aggressive to guests and really aggressive to people on the street.
Yeah. So what if you have a dog that's, well, I think first of all that you have to understand as a Aussie owner the difference between being protective and that outright aggression, which there can be the combination of both. Like you said with Harley, if I wasn't on her and I wasn't very careful with what happened with her, it could be dangerous. Because whatever. But what about those dogs? What do you do about those dogs that are just, anyone comes in the house, you can't control them? Harley's controllable. I can tell her no, leave it. That'll do, quit, and she'll quit. I mean, so she's obedient in that way, and I can manage her. So she's okay. But what about those dogs that are not, or they walk up to somebody and everybody on the street they bark and growl at? What do you do about that?
So kind of different situations. Like you want to deal with a fear issue slightly differently than a dog who is territorial of the house. Because territorial is instinctual. Fear is self-preservation. So when we have a dog, and this is going to depend on like how you as a consultant or behavior professional reads the situation, the dog's body language, all of that. If you have a dog who is straight up fearful and they are just afraid of people and they are afraid of people coming in their house, your approach should be really to make that dog feel safe and comfortable with the situation. So we're going to do, there should always be an element of management. So just making sure that the dog can't rush up to people when they come in the door is really important. I actually, if anybody is interested, because I don't know how in-depth we'll get into this, if you want, you can put this in the notes. I have a webinar that is recorded on dealing with dogs with guest issues. I also wrote an article on it for the IAABC journal, and I have an online class as well. So this is something I do a lot, something I did a lot in the city. It is very scary for dogs who are fearful of people to suddenly have someone materialize in their home. So a lot of these dogs do better if they are kind of put away in a safe space and they don't see the person come in. Some dogs are just not going to be dogs that are going to be able to mingle with guests that come in your home.
Yeah.
I'm talking like maybe some of our more serious dogs, like I'm particularly thinking of a Dutch Shepherd that I worked with. Some dogs need to be carefully introduced to people that are going to be in their life. In order for them to accept people, it's going to take multiple, very careful introductions to that person. Some dogs are not primed to be super social with people on the first meeting that enter their home. There's just dogs that it's not going to happen. And that's genetics, and the dog is supposed to be that way for a reason. Like I also think about some of the guarding breeds, like the Caucasian Shepherds. Those dogs are generally known for high territorial aggression. If they do not know someone before they're 4 months old, they can be extremely aggressive to them coming on the property. Those types of dogs, they just need to be away when you have guests over. End of story. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. And then there are dogs that have potential to warm up to people. Maybe it's going to take a couple of introductions, but they can make friends. Then you have dogs where they're just a little bit nervous, but if they're introduced to people properly, they can warm up, within a first visit or even a couple of minutes. So generally you want to have a strategy for how to deal with the person coming into the home. Some people find their dogs will do really well if they just meet the person out on the street because they're getting introduced off property. That helps the dog to understand this is someone that my family is allowing into the household. And for some dogs, that works just fine. Some dogs, like your girl, totally social off property, and some dogs are just more generally fearful of people. But let's talk about dogs in the house with people coming in the house because it's two separate things. So if you have a dog who is, let's say, generally fearful, safe space when people come in, let your guests get settled. When you put your dog away, give them a really special, long-lasting, high-value treat that they can kind of distract themselves with. Bring them out. I work always on a stay on the bed, so the dog has a safe space. They have an alternate behavior that they know what to do. A lot of this stuff is that there isn't a balanced relationship between the dog and the owner. So the dog either does not trust the owner to keep them safe, or the dog does not trust the owner to handle the situation. They will not defer to that person. So you do want to do work to rebalance that relationship so that the dog says, okay, you are someone that is worth listening to. I should take direction from you. Whether it's that the dog is a strong personality and is just stronger than the owner, or they don't trust them. They've been put into, unsafe situations and they don't trust the owner. It can be multiple things, but you definitely want to look at some relationship building exercises to sort of try to rebalance that so that the dog is willing and able to take direction from the owner. And the owner has to know how to do that too.
Yes.
Right? Like you have to know how to use your body language, tone of voice, to talk to the dog in a way that's going to calm them and, make them feel like you've got things under control. And then I do training exercises like go to bed and stay so that we have an alternate behavior that we can give the dog to do. Bring the dog out. And then usually the last piece is a lot of dogs, especially if they're fearful, will get more reactive when guests stand up and walk around. So we do exercises to kind of counter condition that. And then if you do have a dog who is more protective and balanced, not necessarily fearful, but territorial, if it's not one of those type A dogs that just, goes away when people come over, it's a dog that can warm up to someone with a couple of greetings or, after just sort of like a structured introduction. Same thing. You're going to put them away. Then you bring them out. It's a very calm greeting. The guests are calm. Put them on the bed. With those dogs, you really want to give them direction.
Yep.
So we had talked about, there's a trainer who calls this proactive cueing. You could call it leadership, whatever you want to call it. The dog you have to override their instinct to behave in that way. So you give them something else to do and make sure that they do it. So you do have to follow through with that. So that's a lot of training, because you need to make sure that, like, when I tell you to go to your bed, you're going to listen. I need you to defer to me in this situation. There's that word again. I need you to follow my lead. When I tell you to do this and when I tell you to stay, you're going to stay. And I often use tethers in the first stages of training, just in case the dog goes, you don't know what you're talking about, or they're not well trained enough to hold that stay, and they do decide to get up, they can't run over and bite somebody. So that's a bit of a safety measure, but that's kind of the general. Yeah, and it can get a lot more complicated than that, but really, like, just alternate behaviors. And then with dogs that are fearful, a lot more of you're looking more to counter condition. So a lot more of, like, pairing scary things with positive things. And with dogs who are more confident, protective, it's more like, hey, you do this alternate behavior and I will reward you for it. But if you don't give them direction, they're going to go right back into that instinct.
And I think that this is a serious issue. Aggression is a serious issue, and it requires, I would recommend getting a trainer that is experienced with aggression, and we'll definitely put your courses and your information in the show notes so you guys can access her courses and get the whole in-depth aspect and contact her about this, because aggression is serious, because if the dog bites the wrong person, that dog may end up being put down. And so there are some dogs, and if you, in that time period before you take this on and train on it, just put your dog up. Put them in their crate in the other room, do whatever it is in the other room so that they're calm and sensitive, and just let them be up. And then you don't have to risk an accident until you can actually have a plan put in place to work this. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. There are some dogs that you just put up. That's it. That's okay. There's nothing shameful about it. It's just that personality of that dog doesn't like people in their house. Let it be until you can manage it better or just deal with it,
I had to crate Brew when people came over for a long time because he was too excited.
Yeah. Yeah. I've got one too that's super friendly. He loves everybody. So I have to put him on a drag line, or, you talked about that. I put him on a leash and just let it drag so that I can step on it when he gets too excited to see people. So in a happy way, like, oh, I love you. I want to sit on your lap. Not everybody wants you on your lap,
Yeah.
So yeah, I get that too. So, I think we're getting close here. I think I want to hit one more thing that I feel like maybe this is almost a warning. Like, we talked about if you have little kids, maybe Aussies aren't the best, dog for you. But here's the other kind of thing. If you don't have time and you don't have a lot of ability to exhaust them and use up their energy, maybe Aussies are not the breed for you. There are some Aussies that can handle being couch potatoes. I get that, but that's more on the rare side than the common side. They're very high drive dog, very high drive.
They're extremely active. And I think people don't realize how much exercise, physical and mental, they need. And the other thing too is I find mine they need that physical outlet. They need a good run every couple of days. I'm honestly not, like, my dogs get a lot of exercise. They don't get an hour run every day. We usually go out like every other day, and then we go herding twice a week, so they do something. We do something usually about 6 days a week. And 1 day a week, we have a chill out day where, you guys are going to get raw bones and we're not going to do anything today.
Right.
And they can handle that, but they can't do that for multiple days. Like, my dogs could never be weekend warriors where they chilled out and did nothing but leash walks all week and then went hiking on the weekends.
No.
We usually go out for a good run, like Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday's very often a chill day. Sunday we go herding. Monday we get a good run in. Wednesday we go herding. Brew and Tina are in daycare Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday at our daycare as long as they enjoy it. So they're also getting that exercise. And sometimes it still feels like it's not enough for Brew. And I'm like, holy cow, you can create a physical athlete monster if you try to only do physical exercise, because they just get more and more stamina.
Yes.
So I think mixing it up with mental exercise is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And like I love it when I actually get mine mentally tired. And sometimes like I find hiking meets both because especially if we go to new places, they're getting to sniff as well as run. But I would certainly advise not to just take a dog out and throw the ball in the yard every day
Mm-hmm.
continually because it's not a lot of mental exercise, especially if it's the same place and the same activity repetitively. You can create an obsessive
Yes.
athlete.
Yes.
So mixing it up and doing training and doing mental exercise is really important. But they need a lot. They need a lot, especially when they're younger.
Yeah, until they're about 3.
Yeah, I think they start to kind of calm down a little bit around 3, but they need a lot of exercise.
Yeah, they do. There's this meme going around Facebook that there's a picture of this cute little Aussie from, what is it, 0 to 3 months, little fluffy blue merle puppy. Then the middle picture is a velociraptor from 3 months to 3 years. And
Pretty
then
accurate,
the
right?
third picture is a normal dog again because they kind of are velociraptors. My friend who raises cattle dogs, she calls my Aussies thugs because they're just so like, we're all Aussies, they need so much stimulation. My dogs go out on the four wheeler 2 to 3 times a day. We run our property on the four wheeler, which is awesome, and not everybody has that. But you're also right that the more you build up their stamina, the more they need.
Yeah. And like if you're not a naturally
Yeah,
active person,
it's not going to work.
do not get this dog. Oh my goodness.
Don't get this dog.
Yeah, like
Don't get this dog.
if you want a dog that's going to hang out while you're working and not need, good runs every day, not the dog for you. He's going to
No.
trash your house. He's going to be wild. He's going to drive you crazy.
Oh yeah, and
Uh,
those behaviors of jumping and that the
yeah.
jumping and the feet on, that's just, they can't even control themselves because they have so much pent up frustration. And I like how you said, mental stimulation. And I don't know what you found so far, but for me, the one that wears my dogs out the most is tracking and nose work.
Yes. Yes. So that is often what I recommend to people. Is scent detection, scent work, even just seeking out food because you can do it without a lot of fancy equipment. You
Yep.
can do it in a small space.
Yep.
That's the best. So that's often what I do if we're, short on time or, if we have a day that we're not going to go for a run. I try to do something like that. The other thing that I think is really cool is even just doing a little bit of flirt pole work. If you're not familiar with a flirt pole, it's like a big cat toy, basically, that's made for dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a toy on the end of a pole, so you can move it around quite a bit, and you can move it unpredictably, and so it really stimulates prey drive. But you do have to be careful with dogs that you're training for herding.
Yeah.
You don't want to do too much high arousal prey drive stuff. But if it's just a pet dog at home that's a herding dog, I think a very good outlet
Yeah.
for some of those drives. And instead of just letting them go wild, you build in obedience and control and impulse control with it. So they're getting a lot of physical activity, and you can do it even in a small space, but they're also working their brain.
I agree. Otherwise, if you don't add that into it, it could be like the obsessive ball dog where they just
Right.
go berserk and it becomes a really obsessive behavior. Because Aussies, they're not as bad as border collies as far as the obsessive, but some Aussies can get very obsessive in their behaviors if you're not careful.
But I think that is also like a symptom of not meeting their needs.
Yes.
Like, I think when we have behaviors that become kind of obsessive or stereotypical, if you add in other enrichment, and enrichment is like basically stimulation that meets a dog's natural behaviors or an animal's natural behaviors. If you add that in, those behaviors will usually go away, unless it's like to a true OCD, and then you're going to need some more help.
Right.
But if you just have a dog who's obsessed over the ball and you start to add in some different enrichments, that behavior should go away. It's usually a symptom of not meeting needs appropriately.
Yeah. And after we take our dogs running, their energy level of the whole group just kind of drops down 10 levels. And then they're like, oh, okay. And their brain works better. They're calmer. I mean, not just because they're tired. Their whole energy changes of like, okay, my needs are being met now. And, when they run, they just have big old happy faces and they love it so much. And it changes everything. And I agree with you. If their needs aren't being met, they're going to become very difficult. And a lot of that, sometimes, man, if you're looking at reactivity or minor aggression or the destructive behaviors or any of these jumping constantly and nipping, try stimulating them for a while because some of those might just disappear because you're finally meeting their needs and that's just excess energy.
Yeah, and like I think people need to understand that with high energy herding breeds like Aussies, like leash walks are not going to cut it
Nope.
unless you're going up for hours and hours and hours and they're getting a lot of sniffing.
Hmm.
Leash walks are not going to cut it. They have to run,
Yep.
they have to move their bodies, they have to work their brain.
Yep.
So, people I think who are naturally very active, where they're out jogging, they're out hiking, they're out biking, like more than on the weekends, can do really well with a herding breed dog. But if you are somebody who works full time or more than full time and doesn't want to put out an hour or two of effort into your dog every day, do not get an Australian Shepherd or a Border Collie or any herding breed or working dog is not going to be suitable for you.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter how pretty they are, it's just not going to work because you're going to be miserable and the dog's going to be miserable. And the whole point of getting a dog should be to have a good relationship with them and have it fit your needs. For
Exactly.
sure.
Then you're generally going to end up returning the dog to the breeder or rehoming it, and that's heartbreaking. So hopefully people will listen and do their research before they get them, but there's always going to be people that don't.
Yeah.
And that's where trainers come in.
And that's where trainers come in. And that's why we're having these conversations. And you know what?
Right.
If you have a dog, an Aussie that's really struggling, exercise them first, stimulate them, try to see if that's the problem. Reach out to a trainer to help you with this kind of thing. And, go back to the breeder and ask the breeder for help too. And that's the other thing about picking a breeder. I'm going to just nag about this forever. And every episode, you're going to hear me say something about this. Choose your breeders wisely. Because if you have problems with your dog, you can go back to that breeder and they can say, hey, well, my dogs typically do this, and they have a wealth of information and knowledge to share with you if they're a good breeder. And they can help you.
Yeah. I was listening to another podcast called the Functional Breeding Podcast, which is like, it may be, controversial to some people. It was started by someone who's, she's more interested in genetics, and her whole outlook on this is breeding purpose-bred, purebreds or mixed breeds that have, good temperaments that are functional for not necessarily even work, but as companions. Yeah. But they were talking about picking a breeder, and one of the things that they brought up is like the breeder should be somebody that you want to have as a continued relationship in your life. And not a lot of people realize that is like that is what the breeder can be to you, is, a mentor, a source of knowledge, a source of help and assistance. And you want to find a breeder that not only wants to be invested in you in that way, but that you feel like you can have a conversive relationship with. Mm-hmm. Like Bruce breeder, I see, multiple times a week. I also do herding training with her. She's a very good friend of mine. I have really a good, strong relationship with her. Mm-hmm. And that's fantastic because she's been so much help working through issues I've had with him, because she's been there, done that. She knows his parents. She knows his grandparents. He's my first Aussie, and he was challenging for me in a lot of ways. So her as a resource, as a breeder, is invaluable.
Oh, yeah. I was just thinking the 3 dogs that I have now that I've gotten from breeders, from 3 different breeders, one of them I talk to almost every day. We're really good friends. And the other 2 were great friends. It's just... they're awesome people. I can pick up the phone and call them and ask them about anything, anytime about my dog. And they're friends. They have become friends.
Yeah. Dexter's breeder has been in my life for over 10 years and we still talk often.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just amazing. And the one breeder I have, Copper's breeder, Marty Parrish, I got my first Aussie, was one of her Aussies when I was 14. So it's kind of a circle back. I got another one of her dogs after all these years. And it's just awesome. It's just awesome to have that relationship, and it's all around your dog. And then, guys, look, if you get an Aussie and your Aussie's driving you crazy, get them involved in different sports. A couple of things, you can make new friends. I have tons and tons of friends in the herding trialing arena, and other friends in nose work and tracking. I've made really good friends doing that. So it doesn't, and your dog makes good friends and gets to meet new people and has great new experiences, and they help build a relationship with you. These different sports, you think, they're kind of, that might not be my thing for me, but it might really be a thing for you if you give it a try, because you are going to have a buddy that you never realized you had before, a best friend, because you're going to build a relationship through training and you're going to learn more about your
Yeah.
dog than you ever knew before.
And Aussies are such good
Yeah.
all-around dogs that they can really excel in everything. Like if you want to do obedience, they're going to be a great obedience dog. If you want to do barn hunt or nose work, they're going to be an amazing nose work dog. Like Brew is, when we did nose work, or sorry, we do nose work here. We did barn hunt when we were out east, and he was amazing. He caught on so fast. He loved it. He was so quick. He got his first level title in one trial with like first places, high in class. He's so good at it. He loves it. Really, anything you want to try, they can probably do it.
Yeah, just about. I mean, they're just really versatile dogs.
And there are so many dog sports out there that, like, there's something you're going to enjoy. Like, there's dock diving, there's lure coursing, there's literally everything. And your Aussie is probably going to be good at it.
Exactly. And you're probably going to be able to win too, because they're pretty competitive and they're type A personalities. They like to win and do well. And they're really trainable dogs. They're very easy to train. Compared to
I think you made a really good comment. We didn't talk a lot about relationship building exercises, but training is like the number one way, I think, to build that positive, trusting, leadership based relationship and doing an activity. Like I think I just put Brew in agility starting in December, and a couple of years ago it probably would have just been frustrating for both of us, but he's grown up a lot, and it is really helping our relationship. It's really helping continuing to work on thinking when he's aroused, but it's really has helped us to become a team, and I'm seeing benefits in our stock work from doing agility with him. It's really cool.
Yes. And especially if you're doing a stock and agility, it's always, in my opinion, a good idea to start the stock first, then add the agility in second, just because of the different types of pressure involved in there.
Yeah.
But I think that the stock work also helps your agility too, because he can work away from you.
Yes.
It's awesome. Guys, it's just great. And I have appreciated you being on. I don't want to take up any more of your time because we've gone a long time talking about this great dog training stuff. I really appreciate you being on. Do you have a website, or are you on Facebook? Where do you want people to reach out to you between now and me getting the links up there and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I'm sadly on all social media. So I'm on Facebook. I have my personal page. You're welcome to add me. I love meeting more dog people, especially Aussie people. It's just Sarah Dixon. And then I have a business, because we have two businesses. We have one that is our kind of pet-based business in BC, and it's a fun page to follow. It's going to be more geared towards like education for pet owners. That is Barks and Recreation Pet Services on Facebook.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and then I have another business that is sort of like my education for dog professionals, and that business is Odyssey Animal Behavior. We are on Facebook, and I also have a website, so it's Odyssey, Odyssey, and it's Animal Behavior. The website is spelt without a U, the American way, and I believe the Facebook page is spelt with a U, the Canadian way, just to confuse people.
Right.
But that has, I'm going to put on other podcast interviews that I've done. It has all of my courses. The Guest Manners online course is actually on Barks and Recreation, because that one is more for pet owners to work through. But the webinar that I mentioned is on the Odyssey website. More of the stuff that's for professionals is on there. So everything's there, which is great. And I love to get more followers. I'm on Instagram and TikTok and everything.
Awesome. I'm going to put all these links on my website. So if you're listening to the podcast not through the website, check out the instinctiveaussie.com, and then you'll be able to go to episodes and find this episode, and you will get all the links and all the information to contact Sarah and reach out to her and check out her online courses. And I think you mentioned you were developing an online course.
Yes, it's going to take me a little while to get it done, because it's a long and in-depth course, and I want to make sure that I do a good job. It's going to be a 6 to 8 week online course on puppy raising and training, focusing on building resilient dogs. So it will cover everything from, what breeders can do and how genetics play into it, so to specific exercises that you can do to help your dog be able to tolerate stress and frustration, socializing, how to do it properly, what to socialize to, as well as if you are someone who wants to teach puppy classes, what do you include in your puppy classes and how do you do that so that you are ticking all of these boxes for exercises that puppies need to help them become stable dogs that can tolerate, stressful events.
I love it. So, guys, go ahead and follow Sarah. So, when this course is released, you will be the first to know and you can have access to it. So, I really appreciate you being on the show. Thank you so much.
I really enjoyed this. I would be happy to come on again. I love talking dogs and talking about, behavior problems and herding breeds are some of my favorite things.
Yay.
So, anytime, I would love to come back. I loved this.
We will have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, and that's the show today. Thanks for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed it and got to learn something about this amazing breed, the Australian Shepherd. Join us on Facebook. We have a private group called the Instinctive Australian Shepherd. Join the group and join the conversation there. You can also find us online at theinstinctiveaussie.com. That's where you'll find all the show notes, the links to anything we talked about this show, and all of our past episodes. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever else you find your favorite podcasts, and that way you'll be the first ones to know as soon as an episode is uploaded. All right, everyone, I'll see you down the road.